The fluorescent lights of TechVision's headquarters buzzed quietly overhead as I stared at my computer screen, watching 3 years of work compile into what would become the most advanced predictive maintenance software in the manufacturing industry. My name is Michael Zhang, and at 34, I had created something that would revolutionize how factories operated worldwide. Another late night, Mike? I looked up to see Linda from HR standing in my cubicle doorway, concern etched on her face. She'd been here almost as long as I had, watching me pour my soul into this project. Just finishing up the final integration tests, I replied, rubbing my tired eyes. The board presentation is tomorrow and everything needs to be perfect. What I didn't tell her was that I'd been practically living in the office for the past month, fine-tuning the AI algorithms that could predict machinery failures before they happened, potentially saving companies millions in downtime and repairs. This wasn't just code, it was my legacy. You should be proud, Linda said, placing a coffee on my desk. From what I hear, Robert's already calling it the company's biggest breakthrough in a decade. Robert Kane, my direct supervisor and TechVision's head of innovation. The man who'd given me the green light for this project 3 years ago, who'd promised me full credit and patent rights when I first pitched the idea. Back then his words seemed genuine, his enthusiasm infectious. If only I'd known. The next morning I arrived early, my presentation polished and ready. The boardroom slowly filled with executives, investors, and even a few representatives from major manufacturing companies. Robert sat at the head of the table, his usual confident smile in place. Before we begin, Robert announced, standing up, I want to thank everyone for coming to this historic moment for TechVision. What we're about to show you represents thousands of hours of team effort, led by our exceptional innovation department. Team effort? I frowned slightly. The only team involved had been me, working alone in my cubicle while others dismissed the project as too ambitious. Michael, Robert gestured to me, why don't you show us what we've developed? We've developed? Something in his tone made my stomach clench, but I pushed the feeling aside and began my presentation. For the next hour I demonstrated how the software could analyze patterns in machinery performance, predict failures with 99.8% accuracy, and automatically schedule maintenance before costly breakdowns occurred. The room was electric with excitement. Remarkable, one of the investors said, leaning forward. And the patent status? Before I could respond, Robert smoothly interjected. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Michael, could you stay behind after the presentation? We need to discuss some paperwork. That afternoon, in Robert's corner office with its sweeping view of the city, I learned the true meaning of corporate betrayal. These are the standard IP transfer documents, Robert said, sliding a thick stack of papers across his desk. As per company policy, all innovations developed using company resources belong to TechVision. But we had an agreement, I protested, my voice tight. You promised me the patent rights would be in my name, with the company having exclusive licensing rights. Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. Verbal discussions aren't binding, Michael. Besides, this is better for everyone. The company has the resources to properly commercialize the software. You'll be well compensated, of course. Well compensated turned out to be a modest bonus and a 10% raise. 3 years of my life, my groundbreaking innovation, all signed away in a single afternoon. But Robert had overlooked something crucial. Something I'd buried deep in the code, a failsafe I'd created not out of distrust but out of pride in my work. A hidden feature that would activate exactly 90 days after the software's first full deployment. As I signed the papers, Robert's smug satisfaction was palpable. I knew you'd be reasonable about this, Michael. After all, you're a team player. Of course, I replied quietly, gathering my things. It's all about the team. That evening, as I walked through the parking garage, Linda caught up with me. Mike, wait. I heard what happened. The whole office is buzzing about it. Robert's already sent out a company-wide email taking credit for leading the project. I turned to her, seeing the genuine concern in her eyes. Did you know? I asked. That this was his plan all along? She shook her head. No, but there's something you should know. Last week I was organizing the personnel files and I found something strange. Documents about previous projects, other developers whose names disappeared from patents. You're not the first, Mike. I nodded slowly, unsurprised. Thank you for telling me, Linda. But don't worry. Sometimes the truth has a way of coming out on its own. What do you mean? I smiled, thinking about the elegant lines of code buried deep in my software's core, patiently waiting to be activated. Let's just say Robert might want to read the fine print before he puts his name on something he doesn't fully understand. The next few weeks passed in a blur of forced smiles and quiet determination. Robert paraded around the office like a conquering hero, giving interviews about his breakthrough software. The company's stock price soared as manufacturing giants lined up to license the technology. I watched it all from my cubicle, continuing my daily routine while privately counting down the days. 60 days left. Then 45. Then 30. Robert grew bolder with each passing week. He hired a team of developers to enhance the software, none of them skilled enough to understand its deeper architecture. Every modification they made only strengthened the hidden protocol I'd designed. Linda kept me updated on the office gossip. They're planning a huge launch event, she told me one afternoon. Robert's invited tech journalists from every major publication. He's even hiring a professional videographer to document everything. Perfect. 20 days before the activation, Robert called me into his office again. His manner was different now, almost nervous. Michael, we're noticing some unusual patterns in the software's behavior. Small inconsistencies in the prediction algorithms. I was hoping you could take a look. I kept my face carefully neutral. Of course, though I'm not sure how much help I can be since it's not my project anymore. He flinched slightly at that. Let's not be petty, Michael. We're all on the same team here. Of course, I repeated, already turning to leave. I'll review the logs. The inconsistencies he'd noticed were just the beginning. My hidden protocol was starting to wake up, preparing for its real purpose. Not to damage or destroy. I would never risk the safety of the machinery it monitored, but to reveal the truth about its creation. 10 days before the launch event, I received an unexpected visitor in my cubicle. James Chin, one of the company's original founders, now semi-retired but still on the board. Walk with me, Michael, he said quietly. In the building's rooftop garden, away from prying eyes and ears, James got straight to the point. I've been watching this situation with great interest, he said, looking out over the city. Robert's behavior. It reminds me of patterns I've seen before. Patterns that concern me. I waited, saying nothing. The software, he continued, it's more than just predictive maintenance, isn't it? I smiled slightly. Mr. Chin, everything the software does is exactly what it's supposed to do. It monitors systems, identifies irregularities, and ensures that nothing remains hidden that should be exposed. He nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. And when exactly will it ensure that? In about 10 days, I replied. During the launch event, in fact. James was quiet for a long moment. Then he chuckled. You know, I founded this company on the principle of technological integrity. Somewhere along the way, some people seem to have forgotten that. He turned to face me fully. Whatever happens next, Michael, know that you have at least one ally on the board. The final days ticked by with excruciating slowness. Robert grew increasingly agitated as more unexplainable patterns emerged in the software. He hired external consultants, had his team working overtime, but none of them could understand what was happening. The night before the launch event, Linda sent me a text. Robert's in his office, looking like he hasn't slept in days. What's going to happen tomorrow? I replied simply, justice. The morning of the launch event arrived clear and bright. The company's largest conference room was packed with journalists, industry leaders, and the entire board of directors. Camera crews set up their equipment while Robert, looking slightly frazzled despite his expensive suit, rehearsed his speech one last time. I sat quietly in the back row waiting. Linda slipped into the seat beside me, practically vibrating with anticipation. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert began, taking the podium. Today marks a historic moment in industrial technology. I checked my watch and smiled. The show was about to begin. Today's demonstration will show you the future of industrial maintenance, Robert continued, his confidence growing as he warmed to his rehearsed speech. A breakthrough that I've spent the last 3 years developing. That's when it happened. The massive display screen behind Robert flickered, and the software's interface appeared, but not the sanitized version his team had prepared for the presentation. Instead, the AI's true core activated and a different kind of diagnostic began to run. Initiating comprehensive system analysis, the software announced in its neutral voice. Detecting unauthorized modifications to creator credentials. Robert's smile froze. This wasn't part of the script. What you are about to witness, the AI continued, is the software's primary function, identifying and exposing systematic irregularities. The screen split into multiple panels. The first showed the original project proposal, my proposal, with timestamps and electronic signatures. Next came a chronological display of the software's development, thousands of hours of coding sessions, all logged with my credentials. Stop this, Robert hissed to his tech team. Shut it down. But they couldn't. The software was doing exactly what it was designed to do: expose the truth. Analyzing pattern of intellectual property appropriation, the AI announced. Then came the documents Linda had discovered. Evidence of Robert's previous thefts, other developers whose innovations he'd claimed as his own. Each case meticulously detailed with dates, documents, and damning emails Robert thought he'd deleted. The room erupted in whispers. Journalists were frantically taking notes, cameras rolling to capture every moment. The board members leaned forward, their expressions ranging from shock to anger. "This is nonsense," Robert shouted, his composure cracking. "This is clearly a malicious attack by a disgruntled employee." "Actually," James Chen's voice cut through the chaos as he stood up, "this appears to be exactly what the software claims to be: a system designed to identify and expose irregularities. Rather impressive functionality, wouldn't you say?" The AI wasn't finished. It displayed a split-screen comparison. My original elegant code alongside the clumsy modifications Robert's team had attempted to add. The difference was stark even to non-technical observers. The software's core architecture, the AI explained, contains a self-verification protocol that activates 90 days after deployment. This ensures the system's integrity and prevents unauthorized alteration of creator credentials. Robert's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "This is impossible. Security, shut down the main server." "I'm afraid that won't work," I said, standing up for the first time. All eyes turned to me. "The verification protocol is embedded in every instance of the software, including the copies already deployed at 3 manufacturing plants last month. They're all running this same diagnostic right now." As if on cue, the display showed live feeds from those facilities. The same revelation was playing out across multiple locations, the truth spreading like wildfire through the industry. "Mr. Kane," one of the board members spoke up, "I believe we need an immediate explanation." But Robert had no explanation to give. The evidence was overwhelming, and his carefully constructed facade was crumbling by the second. James Chen took control of the situation. "I suggest we take a brief recess. Security, please ensure Mr. Kane remains in the building. Michael, would you join the board in the executive conference room?" As Robert was escorted out, Linda caught my eye from across the room and gave me a subtle thumbs up. The truth had finally come to light. The next few hours were a blur of meetings, explanations, and legal discussions. I walked the board through the software's true capabilities, including its built-in ethical protocols that ensured it could never be used to hide corporate malfeasance. "So the system doesn't just predict mechanical failures," one board member mused. "It also prevents intellectual theft." "Brilliant. The ultimate safeguard against corporate fraud," another added. "This is even more valuable than we thought." By evening, decisions had been made. Robert was terminated, pending criminal investigation. The company's legal team was already preparing to restore patent rights to several developers from previous projects. And I was offered a new position: Chief Technology Officer with full patent rights to my software and a seat on the board. "There's one condition," I said before accepting. "Linda from HR gets promoted to head a new department of corporate ethics and compliance. She's the one who first uncovered the pattern." James Chen smiled. "I think that can be arranged." The aftermath was significant. The story made headlines in tech journals. AI software exposes corporate fraud during its own launch. Robert's career in technology was effectively over. Several of his previous victims came forward, leading to a class action lawsuit. But more importantly, the incident sparked a larger conversation in the tech industry about intellectual property rights and corporate ethics. Other companies began implementing similar verification protocols in their software development processes. My innovation had started a revolution, not just in predictive maintenance but in corporate accountability. Linda thrived in her new role, transforming TechVision's corporate culture. "You know," she told me one day, "what you did wasn't just about exposing one person's fraud. You created a system that ensures the truth always comes out." He was right. The software continued to excel at its original purpose, predicting and preventing mechanical failures. But its greater legacy was showing that in the digital age, the truth cannot remain hidden forever. A year later, I sat in my new corner office, looking out at the same city view that Robert once enjoyed. On my wall hung a framed piece of code, the elegant lines that had exposed the truth. Below it was a quote my grandfather, a software engineer himself, had taught me years ago. "In programming as in life, integrity must be built into the foundation. It cannot be added later as a feature." The software sales had tripled since the incident. Companies weren't just buying it for its predictive maintenance capabilities, but for its built-in ethical safeguards. It had become a symbol of transparency in corporate technology. Robert's replacement pieces were still making their way through the legal system. Each revelation led to more companies examining their own practices, creating a ripple effect of accountability across the industry. James Chin stopped by my office occasionally, usually with interesting ethical challenges to discuss. "You know," he said during one visit, "when I founded this company, this was exactly the kind of innovation I hoped to see. Not just technical brilliance but moral intelligence built into the code itself." I thought about that a lot. In the end, the most powerful lines of code I'd written weren't the complex AI algorithms or the predictive maintenance protocols. They were the simple but unbreakable rules I'd written into the system's core. The truth will always surface, integrity cannot be overridden, and genuine innovation must be properly credited. As for me, I kept coding, kept innovating, but now with a team that shared my values. Every new project at TechVision had two sets of requirements: technical specifications and ethical guidelines. We were building something more important than software. We were building a legacy of integrity. The plaque on my desk, a gift from Linda, summed it up perfectly. The best code doesn't just solve problems. It protects the truth. Looking back, I realized that Robert's betrayal had led to something far more significant than personal vindication. It had sparked a transformation in how the tech industry approached intellectual property and corporate ethics. Sometimes the greatest innovations come not from revenge, but from the simple determination to ensure that truth and integrity prevail. And somewhere in the millions of lines of code running on servers worldwide, my original signature remained, not just as a mark of authorship, but as a reminder that in the digital age, the truth will always find its way to the surface. The software continues to evolve, learning and adapting, but its core principle remains unchanged. Some things cannot be hidden, some truths cannot be overwritten, and integrity, once encoded, becomes unbreakable.